So when we get people that come into the office with low back pain, one of the first things we're trying to figure out is what are you doing all day? So most people work jobs where they're working between 8 and 10. Even if you're a stay-at-home mom, that's as hard a job as probably any. So the three types of jobs that we tend to see a lot of are sitting jobs, which is probably the vast majority, jobs where there involves a lot of lifting, and then jobs where you're just moving around quite a bit, like a retail type position. The ones that we, like I said, that we address the most are going to be the people that sit all day. And if you've heard that sitting is the new smoking, it is absolutely the truth. So the problem with sitting on your low back is something that we call intradiscal pressure. So we've talked a little bit about discs on other videos, but I'm going to go over real quickly on what a healthy disc looks like and then what sitting can do to your discs over time. So the disc is basically like a jelly donut, to where the middle of the disc, the nucleus, is the jelly of the donut, and these fibers that hold the nucleus in place is the donut. And if the disc starts to dehydrate and it becomes more brittle, it can actually start to tear to where this disc can start to head towards the outside. When this disc starts to head towards the outside, if it gets far enough to the back of the disc, which this is much more likely to bulge or rupture this way than it is to the front. What can happen is if it gets far enough to the outside, it'll bulge back and it'll go into the hole that the nerve comes out of, pressing on the nerve. When it presses on that nerve, that's what creates that pain. So you can have the worst looking back in the world on X-ray or MRI, but if the disc or the vertebra itself are not pressing on the nerve, you're not going to feel any pain. So when you sit, what happens is that it increases the pressure inside of the disc. When that disc gets pressurized, it'll push it back to wherever that weak point is. So if there's a weak point over here on the right, that sitting, which increases the intradiscal pressure, is going to push that back and eventually can start to head towards the outside and press on that nerve. What we don't want to happen is for it to rupture and get outside of the disc. Then it becomes a much bigger problem. So the way that that the intradiscal pressure gets increased is whenever the spine, so the lumbar spine has a lordotic curve that goes like this. So the middle of the back, which is the thoracic spine, it has a kyphosis curve here. So these curves are really important because it helps spread the weight out between the different vertebrae and the different discs. So the disc, again, are the shock absorber in the spine. So when you sit, what happens is it tends to straighten out the spine, especially if you lean forward. So when I lean forward like I am right now, it's straightening out my spine. When I sit up straight, it keeps that curve in my low back. And you can really feel that difference if you do it while you're sitting watching this video. You can feel the difference when you sit up straight. You can feel that curve coming back into your low back. So when that happens, if it straightens out, it'll create extra pressure, usually about 60, 70 pounds more, and it'll push that back. And if you've got a weakness there, that's when it's going to start to head towards the back of the disc and possibly start to bulge. So that's sitting. The people that walk around and move around a lot, they really don't usually have a lot. Their jobs don't cause a lot of their back problems unless they're wearing improper footwear. The ones that tend to get the worst type of back pain are the ones that lift all day. So when you're lifting, and we just did a video on this today where we talked about proper lifting techniques. So if you haven't watched that, make sure that you check that out. But if you're bending at the waist, again, it's going to flatten out that spine. It's going to create extra pressure inside of the disc. Same thing as sitting, to where it's going to push back. But now you've got not only the extra pressure that's coming from straightening out your spine and leaning forward, now you're adding weight that you're trying to pick up as well, and that's where you really get into trouble. So making sure that you're using proper lifting technique. If you do have to sit at your desk, I would recommend getting a standing desk so that you're standing all day. But if you do have to sit at your desk, make sure that you're following proper ergonomic procedures and that you've got some lumbar support so that it forces you to sit up straight and keep that lower back curve in there. So if you or somebody you know is dealing with some back pain that they get from their work, or they're always complaining after a long day's work about their back issues, make sure you tag them below or like or comment on the video, and we'll see you on the next one.